block MSW-6, that is social work research, basics of research and social work. So today we are going to learn the basics of social work research. What exactly is meant by research? First, we will just discuss a little bit what exactly is meant by social work research. So basically, social work research is a process where we are required to bring out some authentic and reliable information regarding any phenomena. It is basically defined as a systematic inquiry which is done to understand a particular phenomena. It could be a social phenomena, it could be a scientific phenomena, anything, or physical phenomena. But since we are dealing with social science research, we are more interested in learning about the social phenomena and understanding the social phenomena. Now, why do we say that it is scientific? Is a scientific process. Why do we say that research is scientific, or what do you mean by having a scientific approach on for research? Now, basically, scientific means that um, we carry out the research in such a way that it is done in a logical, step by step manner, without any biases, and that whatever we are observing, we are writing down our observations as they are. So there is a great deal of objectivity that is involved. Now, scientific research, you can say that it basically aims at describing, explaining, and understanding objects, and it involves some kind of a investigation process which is done in a step by step manner. And it is also a critical investigation of the phenomena. So we have to understand that we not only describe the phenomena, but we also explain how the phenomena is taking place and finally understand the relationship among the phenomena. Now, there are basically two conceptual foundations on which a scientific research is based on. The first is the facts, and the second is a theory. So, what do you understand by facts? Now, fact, they simply mean some phenomena that has been observed. So, whatever you are observing, whether you are observing some social phenomena, you're observing some natural phenomena, whatever phenomena you are observing, that is simply put forth as a fact. And scientific research, it aims at systematically describing the observed fact and the relationship with other phenomena or other facts. So we also have to understand that the nature and um, the nature of the fact and the relationship of fact with other facts. Okay, so basically, and the second one, as we say, is basically theory. Now, once we observe a fact, that is, we observe a natural phenomena, what we do is we will follow different steps according to the scientific research, the steps involved in scientific research. And once we arrived at the conclusion, we will come up with a logical explanation of the same, which is actually known as a theory. Now, basically, theory, as put forth by Goodey and Hatt, a theory, it refers to the relationship between facts or the ordering of them in some meaningful ways. Okay, so whatever facts we are observing, the relationship between those facts, and we order them in such meaningful way that it can be put forth as a theory. Okay, now it is basically also defined as a set of interrelated constructs, okay, or concepts which has certain definitions, and they present a systematic view of phenomena by specifying relations among the variables with the purpose of explaining and predicting the phenomena. Now, I would really appreciate if you are able to, if the students are able to participate a little bit in the discussions. So, can you just unmute yourself, those who are present? So we have Sushma Rani, we have Chandi, we have Krishna Priya, Gayatri. Uh, just let me know if you are able to understand what I am talking in terms of research. It can be a little bit of bit difficult initially. Yes, Sushma, you want to say something? Sushma, you raise your hand. You want to say something? Okay. So, anyways, we will continue with the presentation. So, now as we were talking about the concept of facts and theory, now when we talk about scientific research, we know that we start with the facts and then gradually we move towards theorizing. So, once we have observed the fact, we have observed their definition, their meaning, we are going to observe the interrelationship between these various facts. And based on the empirical investigations, we are going to come up with a theory part. Okay, we are going to formulate a theory which will be able, which is something which is more generalized, which is something which can be, um, made, which is more, you can say, universal in nature. So, theory is something which is always universal. That is, you can always um, say that theories are, it is reliable, it is also more general in its approach, and it is also universal. That is, a theory will remain as it will stay true wherever we look at it. So whether you are looking at a theory while staying in India or you're looking at the theory while you're staying in some other country, it will be the same. Okay, there will not be many change. And the theory they knit together as a result of the observations. Whenever we are observing, okay, this is a very important process which is basically related to research, and this enabled the scientist to make about some general statement about the variables, that is about the various the phenomena and the relationship among them. Okay, now there is, you can say, a very constant and intricate relationship between facts and theory as it was put forth by Van Delen. Now he says that facts without theory or theory without facts, they lack significance. So if you do not have facts in the theories, or the theory is without any fact, then there is no significance, or there is no importance, to any of them. Facts, they take their significance from the theories, and theories are the one which define, classify, and predict the facts. Okay, theories, they possess significance when they are built upon, classified, and tested by facts. Now, thus, the growth of science is dependent upon the accumulation of facts and the formulation of new or broader theories. Uh, Now, everything is actually very well given in your the study material, which is provided by the university. So, just go through the study materials as it is given, and preferably follow the material in a as in the way chronological order. So, start with the first book, then go on with the next blocks and units, so that will make your understanding more easier. Now, it is particularly true that in the early stages of scientific development, research was confined basically to seek answers to highly specific and particularized problems. And later on, it tends to strive towards unity by breaking down the very barriers that had made its earlier progress possible. Okay. Now, scientific theories, they tend to be more meaningful and realistic structure. Okay. And this is precisely why theories are important, and why they offer a very important function. Now, after this, we are going to discuss about the purpose of a theory. Why theory is important, why is it required. Now, there are several purposes that are served by a theory in the development of science. First of all, a theory will always summarize and puts in order the existing knowledge in a particular area. So, whatever area you're talking about, whether you're talking about social work, we are talking about sociology, whether you're talking about political science, and whichever area in that particular subject you are talking about, a theory will summarize and it will put in order that existing knowledge. And it also permits a very deeper understanding of data, and it makes the data more retainable and adaptable. Also, theory is it provides a provisional explanation for observed events and relationships. Okay, so it identifies the variables that are related and the nature of their relationship. So whatever relationship that is there between the different variables, between the different facts that we are observing, theory it brings some kind of a provisional explanation to those observed events and the relationship between those events. And finally, theory permits the prediction of the occurrence of phenomena, and it also enables the investigator to discover the unknown phenomena. So a theory will always help you to predict the occurrence of the phenomena. Why? Because now you know the relationship between the various phenomena, when they are occurring, the frequency of their occurring. So you can easily predict when they are going to occur. And of course, it also enables the investigator to discover certain unknown phenomena. So this is basically the purposes of theory, the different purposes of theory. Now, after that, we come to the stage of developing a theory. Now, social research in any form, scientific research in any subject is most important in developing a theory. Okay, because the investigator will definitely make intelligent theory is actually built upon some collected facts. And the investigator, he or she is supposed to search and make some intelligent guesses as to how the facts are ordered. They add the missing ideas or the links, and they then put forward a hypothesis. Now, hypothesis is basically a statement. We will come to this later in the part when we are going to discuss the various steps of research. But once we put forth a hypothesis, we generally deduce the consequence, uh, what consequence will follow from the hypothesis. So, what is going to be the outcome of that? And we look for some further facts which are consistent or otherwise with the deduction. So, whatever facts are consistent with our observations, and this helps us in build a more wider generalization or conceptual framework on more facts, and this eventually outlines a theory. So basically, you can say the theories are solidly based on evidence, and this evidence is in turn garnered by through the scientific research. Now, once a theoretical framework has been elaborated, we know that what facts we are supposed to look for to confirm or deny the theory. So basically, this is a conceptual framework inside with which our evidence can be tested. So we will have a conceptual framework through research. And theories, they always involve terms that refer to matters that cannot be directly observed. Definitely, these are something which not always are directly observed. And for example, now they have given an example that gravity, for example, it is very much real, it is ever present, but you cannot observe gravity. Although we can just observe the effects of gravity and the gravitational force. Okay, so this is basically theory which is helps us to know about phenomena which cannot be directly observed by us. So we can say that theories come up with certain constructs, okay, and which is also termed as a scientist's imagination. So construction, it is a construction of the scientist's imagination, basically. Now, after this, we will go into little depth about the scientific method, the concept of scientific method. Now, the method that we use basically to carry out research, this is known as the scientific method. And according to Lundberg, scientific method, it consists of three basic steps. So there will always be three basic steps when we are talking about a scientific research. The first step is what is known as the systematic observation. So we in this process we observe the various phenomena, the social phenomena or the physical phenomena, whatever we are trying to find out. So, we will first of all do a systematic observation of the phenomena. The second step is classification. So, second is a classification of data. So, whatever data we have gathered from our systematic observation of the phenomena, we are going to classify that data. And once that classification is complete, we are going to interpret the data, which is the third step in the scientific method. Now, these steps they bring about verifiability of the facts, that is, the facts they can be verified easily, but it also lays a confidence in the validity of the conclusion, how valid the conclusion is. Okay. Again, some other scientists like Rubin and Babi, they define scientific method as an approach to inquiry that attempts to safeguard against errors commonly made in casual human inquiry. Okay, so basically, different scientists have given different definitions of scientific method, but all said and done, one thing is sure that scientific method is basically it is ordered. That is, it consists of logical steps that are to be followed in that order. Okay, and the investigation it is concerned with classes of objects, not individual objects. Okay, especially when we are dealing with the concept of universality and predictability. Universality means that it is true everywhere, in any part of the world where we talk about, it is true everywhere. And it is predictability, that is, it is also predictable. And this scientific method, it makes it possible to predict about a phenomena with sufficient accuracy. Okay. Now, the major characteristics of scientific method. The first characteristic of scientific method is what is known as objectivity. Objectivity means that we do not leave anything for our bias, okay, or for you can say that for our own understanding of the fact, or subjectivity. So it's just opposite to subjectivity. It means that whatever we are observing, okay, whatever we are putting forth in that research, it is after duly observed, it is after proper observation, and it is free of our biases. Okay, so it is not based on any preconceived notion. Okay, the second is the verifiability. Verifiability means that you can always verify the data that you have gathered. Okay, so you can always verify the data. Third is the replication. Replication means that you will have the same results if you replicate that research under the same conditions, under similar conditions. Now, I am not saying that it will be replicated, it can be replicated, always it can be replicated. No, it depends. And when we are talking about social science research, this replication process is something which will not always be true, because social science research, as we will discuss in the later part, it is little different from the physical science research. And the last characteristic of scientific method is prediction, that we can always predict the occurrence of the phenomena. Why? Because we have come up with that basic theory, and the theory will help us to actually predict when that phenomena is going to occur next. Okay. So these are the different characteristics of the scientific method. Now we come to how do we use scientific method in social sciences. Now, there is always a difference in the manner scientific method is used in social sciences as compared to the physical sciences. Now, we all know that physical sciences include subjects like physics, like biology, like chemistry, and others, which are based on the observation of physical phenomena. Okay. Now, but as social scientists, we deal with observing the social phenomena. Now, phenomena means that we are interested in understanding or gathering information about the way people behave, about the way we see the cultural settings in the society, the different um, the different phenomena that is taking place in the society. So we as social scientists are interested in studying the with the human behavior largely, which is quite complex and dynamic in nature. And this definitely differs from society to society, from culture to culture. We will see that this social phenomena, the social phenomena, they are definitely going to differ from culture to culture, from society to society, and from time to time also. So there is always a problem of subjectivity, and also what is known as individualistic generalization. Okay, so basically, this problem of subjectivity or bias, this is something which may always come, because after all, even as social scientists, we are also members of the society. Okay, so we come from a particular background. We have a different, idea about the world around us, about the society around us. We follow a particular cultural, we come from a particular cultural context, so understanding of a particular phenomena may be different from the perception or understanding by a person who is born and brought up in a different cultural setting altogether. So this subjectivity is always a problem in social sciences. But despite these limitations, we will find that the scientific method is very much used in social sciences. Of course, we have made it, or you can say that we have, applied it in a way which is more apt or appropriate for social sciences. Okay. Now, the subject and the scientific research, here it is definitely much greater in complexity, and although the problems of discovering principles of human behavior are difficult, we know that it is definitely not impossible to study human behavior. So, social scientists, they have to carry out their observations very carefully, as is done in natural sciences by the scientists. Then, of course, the qualitative judgments, they need to be supplemented by more exact quantitative measurements. Okay, so this subjectivity part, it can be controlled to a greater extent. Now, social sciences, we are actually not able to establish generalizations or equivalent to theories of the natural sciences. Why? Because we know that in social sciences, since the context of people is different, and the context of occurrence of social phenomena are different, we are not able to establish generalizations. So, what is appropriate for the Indian society may not be very appropriate, say, for example, in Africa or maybe in some other part of the world. So, we need to understand that the kind of generalizations that is made in the natural sciences, that will definitely not be the case when we are dealing with social sciences. But nevertheless, social sciences is not exactly completely an objective as a completely objective as a natural sciences, but despite these limitations, we have been able to apply the scientific method in our social sciences science research to a great extent. Now, here we will understand what is the meaning of social research and social work research. Now, as we have seen, social research is the discovery of causal relationship in human behavior. Okay, so it is generally acknowledged that in human behavior, as much as a natural phenomena, a large degree of measurable and predictable set of associations occur. So, just like research in physical and natural sciences, um, social science research also uh, it also tends to analyze these associations in all their variety and intensity. Social research, it has a distinct character of its own, because when it comes to application of scientific process to social phenomena, in social research, objects are very conscious and active human being. Okay, so we are not uh, dealing with the certain natural physical phenomena which is maybe not alive, but we are dealing with objects which are active human beings, alive people. So the individual behavior of the object, whether it is free or determined, makes the social research actually quite difficult in its approach. Okay, and social research also, it concerns with a lot of social data which is complex. Okay, it is difficult to interpret. When we are dealing with complex groups, or when we are dealing with the such complex objects, you will find that the expectations of their behavior, everything, it becomes very complicated. So it's this complex nature of social data which reduces the power of exact prediction in social research. So unlike in physical research, this predictability is definitely not one characteristic in social science research, because as we have already seen that the objects are very complex, that is human beings, their behavior is very complicated. The data that we come up, the social data that we gather, in turn it becomes very difficult, it becomes very complicated, and thus our analysis part will definitely become all the more complicated. So we will find that this predictability, or this able to this power of exact prediction in social research, it is definitely something which is lesser as compared to the other physical science research. And most of the subject matter when we are talking about social research, that is more qualitative and rather quantitative. Although nowadays, when we talk about research, it is a judicious mix of both. So, when we are applying the various tools and techniques and other methods of research, we will find that generally you will find a judicious mix. Okay, like because you have certain subjects, for example, a subject like psychology, a subject like management in social science, they tend to have a more bearing on the quantitative approach. So you will find more comparative studies in these subjects. Okay. On the other hand, in subjects like social work, sociology, which study the social phenomena from a different perspective, you will find that there tends to be more qualitative theme to the research as compared to the quantitative theme. But nevertheless, it is usually a judicious mix of both. So when we are formulating research, or we are coming up with a particular uh, theme, or maybe you can say that a design for your research, when you're coming up with the design for research, it has to have a judicious mix of both. Now here we are going to discuss about the social research process, or what are the various steps, okay, that are basically there in the social research. Now, the social research, as we have seen, it consists of various steps which are often interconnected and are interrelated to each other. Okay, so it's kind of a cyclical approach that we have when it comes to the social research process. So, the first step that is generally there in the social research process is what is known as the formulation of a problem. So this means that we will understand, we will zero on the problem or what we intend to study. For example, if you are a social worker or a social work researcher, and you intend to study the problems of the aged population, you are going to study exactly what particular aspect of the aged population you are interested in. So, if you're interested in gerontological studies, you are going to come find out what are the exact thing or the exact problem do you want to study. So, this formulation of a problem, it has to be very specific. So, the problem that you will take in hand, it has to be specific, as in within that broad area or the broad theme of research, which is a particular aspect that you will be studying or a particular problem. So are you interested in studying about the mental problem faced by the aged population, or are you interested in studying about the various say the current status of legislations for the aged population, or exactly what are the various development programs that are there for the aged population. So this first step would be the formulation of the problem. So you will be specifically select a particular problem out of the list of problems that you come up with. Okay. Second is the formulation of hypothesis. Now, we have selected a problem. We are going to actually read a lot about the problem itself. So, once you suppose maybe you want to study the mental status of the uh, aged population, or maybe say of senior citizens in a particular setting, or say maybe it could be a institutional setting like a old age home or whatever. Now, in order to understand that concept fully, you need to first do a literature, you need to go through the literature which is available for that particular theme. So you are going to first of all read the different material which has already been written on that particular problem. And once you have read that material, you are going to formulate the hypothesis based on the problem. So, what exactly do you want to study? Based on that, we will formulate our hypothesis. Now, hypothesis is basically a statement which we intend to prove or disapprove. So whether you want to give us a statement like this, that the mental status of of the senior citizens, or senior citizens who are living in the institutional setting is better as compared to the those living in their homes, or whatever. It could be anything like that. So this formulation of hypothesis is basically related to the whatever you want to prove or disapprove in your research. After we have formulated the hypothesis, we are going to formulate the research design. Research design means that there are different types of research, which are there. For example, it could be a comparative research where you are going to compare variables. It could be a descriptive research where you're going to simply describe a particular phenomena. Okay, and it could be an action research. Okay, that means you basically it's an applied form of a research where you actually apply the research to a given setting. or to the particular client, the uh, people, and then see the results accordingly. So there are different research designs. This we are going to see later. And after this, you're going to formulate the research design. So based on the hypothesis formulation, we will formulate the research design for our thing. Once we have formulated the research design, we are going to discuss or decide upon the various methods, the tools, or the techniques of research that we want to employ to collect data. So, how are we going to collect that data? Are we going to use the questionnaire? Are we going to do an interview? Are we going to do focus group discussions? So, depending upon whether it is more a qualitative thing or a quantitative thing, we are going to formulate the research design accordingly. Okay. After that, once we have formulated the research design, the next step is basically the collection of data. So, of course, you will go to uh, the place or the respondents who you intend to collect data from. So we will basically during this research design formulation, we will also going to decide upon the universe or the area from where we intend to collect the data. And so we are going to collect the data from that particular area. We are going to interview those respondents or collect data from them through other sources, through other techniques. Once the data is with us, we are going to analyze and interpret the data using various tools. Nowadays, there are a lot of softwares which are also available for analysis and interpretation of data. So once you have that, like SPSS is there. There are so many other software also which are generally there at the disposal of the social scientists. And once our analysis and interpretation of data is done, the next step would be generalization and theory building. So, based on the analysis and the interpretation of data, we are going to come up with the theory building exercise. Okay, or come up with the conclusions or what our research has concluded. Okay, so this is going to be the basis for another research. So, one research can be a basis for the next research. This is something. So, whatever things we were not able to utilize or find out in our research, it can be it can this can be used, or the gaps can be used by other scientists to fill up and get more accurate data about regarding the theory building exercise. Now, social work research is basically it's the application of research method to the production of knowledge that social workers need to solve problems. Now, of course, you know that the social work is basically a very applied discipline. So we just are not interested in only theory building. Our main aim is to actually apply this theory to practice. And how do we put into practice? We are basically interested in providing services to the clients. Okay, and we use the knowledge that we have gathered through various researchers to actually improvise this service delivery. And it is basically useful in appraising the effectiveness of methods and techniques of social work. Now, you must have heard about the various methods that we use in social work, like social casework, okay, community organization, social group work, and others. So there are primary and secondary method. I hope you remember. Anybody can give me the primary and the secondary methods in social work? Can anybody tell me that? Okay. So basically, as we all know that there are two different types of methods. One is the primary method of social work, and then there are the secondary methods of social work. So primary include our social casework, social group work, and community organization. And the secondary methods of social work that would include our social action, social work research, okay, and social welfare administration. So these are the first primary and the secondary methods of social work research. Now, the knowledge that we gather from these research, this is helpful in solving the problems that is confronted by the practitioners of social work. Okay, it will help you to increase the effectiveness of the methods and techniques that we use to work with our clients, and it also provides information that can be taken into consideration by social workers before they make decisions regarding the programs related to the clients, or techniques or which can be applied for modification of programs, so and so forth. So basically, it is basic. So social work research is very important for social work discipline, and it helps in building the knowledge base for the social work theory and practice. Now, when we come to the social work research process, it can be said that it starts with the problem identification and setting up of goals. Now, there is a little bit of difference when we talk about the social work research process from the normal social research process. So, here the first is the problem identification, or here we also set up the goals. What exactly do we intend to find out from this particular research? The next part is followed by the process of assessment of the client. Okay, we need to assess the problems of the client. Okay, after this need assessment is done, after we are able to assess the problem of the client, we are going to select the social work research design. Whatever particular research design do we need to employ to carry out the research. After this, we are going to have a pre-intervention measurement. In this, we are going to um, measure the phenomena, the situation prior to our intervention. Okay, so this would be done before the intervention has been put into the practice. After this measurement, after we are able to carry out the pre intervention measurement, we are going to uh, have the intervention done. Okay, so this is basically the pre-intervention measurement. As we know, it helps us to compare the client's condition before the intervention has been introduced, and after we introduce intervention, then we go to the pre-intervention post intervention measurement. Sorry, post intervention measurement is used to compare the client's condition after the intervention has been introduced. So pre intervention is before intervention has been introduced, and post intervention is after the intervention has been introduced to the client, and then we finally come up with the inferences, or whatever result we get from our particular social work process, research process. Now, so this is how the social work research is a little bit different. Often it is also known as action research, because it is also very much applied in its outlook. Okay, it is also an applied research which helps us to apply the inferences or the results of the research. It can be directly applied to the field. So it's an application based result. And apart from field of social work, action research is also very common in disciplines like anthropology, where you also have to work and you have to, apply intervention to the social setting or the community that you're dealing with, or you study in community in question. Now we come to the nature of social work research. What is the nature of social research? Now, social work research, we know it deals primarily with the problems faced by the professional social workers, social work agencies, and the community in its concern with the social work functions. So, it's basically in the course of doing social work or planning to do the social work. Now, it is also obvious that social work research it study the problem from the point of view of the professional social work practitioners. Okay, so for example, the various steps that we use, like the designing of the research, the problems of identifying the problems, the data collection process, its interpretation, all these have to be attempted in a manner as would be useful to the professional social work. Why? Because this is going to add new knowledge to the social work theory and practice, and this would in turn improve the efficiency of the professional social workers. So they will be able to provide better services to the clients to help in planning better interventions to the clients. Now, social work research mostly it draws its inferences from inductive reasoning. Now, what is meant by inductive reasoning? Now, there are two types of reasoning that we say. One, what is known as the inductive reasoning, okay, and the other, which is known as the deductive reasoning. Now, induct means actually to incorporate. Okay, incorporate. So, in inductive reasoning, we are going from a particular to general. So, from a particular aspect, we are going to a more general aspect. And this is done by an inductive process. The other is known as a deductive process, where we have a general aspect of something, of some a factual fact or a phenomena, and from there we go to a more particular aspect. This is known, which is known as a deductive reasoning, a deductive reasoning. And social work mostly comes from the inductive reasoning. So, from a particular fact, you're going to a more generalizing, you're going to generalize that phenomena. So, in social work, inductive reasoning carries us from observation to theory through intervention and assessment. So, observation of a particular fact, and then we build up that observation and finally formulate theory. And this is done through intervention and assessment of the condition. Okay. Now, practitioners they may observe, for example, they have given an example that practitioners they may observe delinquents tend to come from families with low socioeconomic status. Now, delinquents means we are talking about the juvenile delinquency, the phenomena of the juvenile delinquency. That means that children who are in conflict with the law, that is, anybody who does something which is considered to be illegal and who is less than 18 years of age. Okay. Now, delinquency, juvenile delinquents are generally uh, uh, children who are carrying out such or who are acting in a manner which is considered to be illegal from that particular law. So, this phenomena, this observation that delinquents tend to come from families with low socioeconomic status, based on the assumption that the parent child bond is weaker in low socioeconomic families, and that such parents, therefore, have less social control over their children. The practitioners may inductively conclude that a weak parent child bond leads to delinquency. Okay, now this is what it means to be having an inductive reasoning. That is, you go from a particular observation, you build on that particular observation, and finally you tend to you theorize the or generalize the observation. Okay, so you work on theory building. Now, a large part of social work practice is concerned with the micro level practice. Okay, that means you work with individual or groups or a particular community. Okay, and social work it has to take into consideration the limitation of the micro level design of study and techniques. Of course, it lays special emphasis on what is known as the evaluation. Okay, and that is why social work research is sometimes also understood as evaluative research. Okay, under social work research, varieties of evaluative researches are undertaken, and many of these researches are they are impacts or effect of a particular program. They are on efficacy and effectiveness, maybe of a particular technique or a method. Maybe it could be evaluation work of agencies and its projects and programs. These are some of the specialized areas of social work research. Now, after this, we come to the scope of social work research. What is the scope of research in social work? Now, social work research, it re-examines the special body of knowledge, it re-examines the concepts and theories, and it tries to evolve a systematic theory and valid concepts in the area of social work practice. Okay, it also works in identification of social work needs and resources, evaluation of governmental programs and services. It can also lead to evaluation of programs and services of social work agencies and some of the areas in which social work researches are undertaken. Okay, now this is actually the scope of social work research. So, what all is covered in social work research? Now, we may also study the problems which are faced by the professional social workers and social work agencies and also the communities in their concern with the social work function. At times, social work research, it also embraces the entire gamut of social work profession. So we may come up with some concepts related to social work. We may come up with certain theories, methods, programs, services, and the problems which are faced by the social workers in their practice. These can be again studied under the social work research. So we have basically all the three areas of intervention. So we have the micro area of intervention, we have the meso area, and then we have the macro area. Okay. Now, generally, it could be focusing on practitioners' work with individuals. It could be related to practitioners' work with groups or families and communities, or it could be appraisal of certain programs which is run either by the government or either run by certain organizations or agencies. Like it could be maybe done by run by a particular organization, like in terms of an NGO. Okay, or it could be anything like that. So the research design, the data collection, the analytical strategies, all these in social work research, it varies as a function of unit of analysis and the program of agencies of social work practitioner. So based upon what exactly we are trying to analyze, is it at the micro level, or is it at the meso level or at the macro level? Our research strategies, our data collection, research design, all these things, they are going to vary. Okay. And mostly social work research focuses itself to select aspects of behavior and alternate modes of behavior modification. And it helps to find ways and means to enhance social functioning at the individual level, at the group level, at the community and the society levels. So here we see that the areas of social work research, it has been broadly categorized into five areas. First is the studies of establish, identify, and measure the need for service. Whether there is a need for a particular service, okay. Then second, it is also helpful in measuring the services which is offered and their relation to the needs. Third, it also helps to test, gauge, and evaluate the results of the social work intervention. So, whatever interventions we have planned, it will help us to test that intervention, see if it is working, see if it is effective. It is going to gauge and evaluate the results of the intervention. So, this is again another area of social work research. One area is to list the efficacy of specific techniques of offering services. So, the various techniques that we are using for offering our services, it will help us to list the efficacy of those specific techniques. And finally, here we also study the methodology of social work. So, the various methods of social work research also helps us to study the different methods of social work. Now, there are diverse broad research areas that is there in social work. For example, the various researches can be done in the field of community development, it can be done in the field of environment and sustainability issues, it can be done in the field of child welfare. Okay, so specifically with children who are in need of care and protection, or children who are in conflict with the law, or what we call as juvenile delinquents. It can also be done in the field of women welfare, in field of women empowerment, then also for youth welfare, for welfare of the aged, or for gerontological social work, as we call it. It can also be used for persons or clients who are into substance abuse. It can be helpful in poverty alleviation issues. Then in mental retardation, okay, in mental health, it is a very important area of social work. Then, of course, crime and corrections and juvenile delinquency, as we have already seen. Public health, disability studies, and migration. Now, these are some of the important research areas where social work research can be used. Now, this is only an illustrative list. This is not an exhaustive list. Of course, it depends a lot on country to country, from background to background. There are certain problems which are more of grave nature in countries like India, or in other developing countries, like issues related to poverty alleviation, child welfare, women welfare. Then in some other countries, for example, in US, for example, mental health, crime and corrections, juvenile delinquency, these take up more important, these are considered to be more important areas for research. So these are basically some of the illustrative lists of the areas where social work research can be put into practice. Okay. Now, after this, we are going to come up with the next unit, which talks about the research review in social work. So, here we are going to understand the review part in social work, okay, from both national and international perspective. Now, uh, we have already seen that areas of research in social work are many. Okay, from starting from establishing, identifying, and measuring the need for service, to measure the services which are offered and are related to the needs, to test, gauge, and evaluate the results of social work intention, to list the efficacy of the specific techniques. Okay, now. Uh, uh, Here we talk about the research review in social work from an international perspective. Now, um, there are basically, first we have to understand that research review, it pertains to uh, the the review that you carry out, or the studying of the literature or the review articles pertaining to the social work published in various international journals, which are of interest to the professional social workers. Okay, now here these are broadly classified into four categories. The first is what is known as the evaluation research. Second is the refinement in measuring techniques. Third is practitioner researcher integration. And finally, the fourth is use of research techniques by practitioners in monitoring their intervention activities. Okay. Now, when we review the state of art of research and social work, in the way it is done in the Western countries, it says that there is no single composite Western profile or a picture. Okay. Now, it is different in different countries depending upon the context, depending upon the the conditions which are there, the problems that are mostly faced by the people. Okay. Now, till 1960, we can say that in the Western world, social work research was quite an underdeveloped. It was quite an underdeveloped state, even in countries like US, which have had a very long history or tradition of social work practice. And most of the researchers in social work, they employed survey research design, that is used to generally carry out survey going from door to door and then carrying information, getting information from those respondents. And they were generally concerned with the description of different social problems using the basic statistical methods. Only few of these researchers they used experimental research designs, and they were concerned about the research methodologies. So, the diagnostic analysis through correlation and path analysis. Now, this is something which is mostly done in descriptive research. Now, descriptive research is not something which is very common in social work. As we've already said, that descriptive research is not very common in social work. It is mostly common in fields like psychology, you know which are there to get about more in-depth study of the problems. Now these researchers they followed a hypothetical deductive model of social science research. Hypothetical deductive model, we have already seen the two models. We have seen the deductive model and the inductive model. And we know that mostly in social work, the inductive model is generally followed. But most of the research which is there in the descriptive part, in the descriptive researches, they are mostly follow a deductive model of social science research. Now, although a lot of changes have taken place now, and we find that there is a shift of emphasis from simply describing the social problems, you know, to actually, uh, understanding a greater or understanding those problems from a greater perspective. Okay. So research concerning social work intervention through casework method, this assumes greater importance in affluent countries like European countries like USA, and almost simultaneously research in the social work intervention through group work, community organization, and administration of welfare services. This received more recognition in the field of social work process. Then as this as there the uh, um, demand for higher standards of social work services and accountability of social workers, this arose. The way This paved way for the use of computer technology in the social work research. So computer assistance, this came up to be very much in demand to reduce the non or parasocial work activities. And this was actually also used to minimize the underutilization or wastage of the social work skills. So, of course, you know that the work it became more easier, became more faster, and it also became more, you can say that, correct, or you can say that. These softwares that were used, they were then encouraged by the researchers. Okay. And this was also realized that social work practitioners they do not make use of computer as part of their functions. Neither practice nor research can develop substantially until and unless we use computers. So since then, practitioners they have to evaluate their interventions with clients by using systematic research techniques with the help of computers. So, this actually became a practice, and also most of the practitioners that were practicing with the clients they had to actually evaluate their interventions using the help of computers. Now, um, social work research practitioners were helped to empirically describe what they are doing with their clients and what they are following a particular course of treatment. So they have to actually monitor this. And there has been a sharp decline in the survey research. So nowadays, generally, people abstain from going for surveys until unless it is actually used for some program that we want to start with. So apart from that, usually the survey design is generally not followed. And this shift in the research, this emphasis, this may have occurred because the traditional researchable issues they had been exhaustively studied or had established comprehensive patterns or trends. Okay. And another reason for the movement away from the traditional researches is the consistent demand for higher standards of social services. So, you know that clients, they have to, especially in the developed countries, where social work is actually considered to be a full fledged profession, there the service demands for social services is actually quite high. So, the quality of services, it has to be very high, and that is why this there is a movement from the traditional method of research to the comparatively new method of research. Also, there is a greater increase in accountability of professional social workers. Okay, this accountability is something which is required from social workers, and that is why there has been this change in the research method. Now, so as we say in the Western world, social work research methodology, it links the social work knowledge and practice. Okay, so this again, as we've already seen, that social work research is very important because it helps us to link the knowledge of social work with the practice of social work. Okay, how we can increase the efficacy of the services, how we can increase the accountability of the social workers. All these things is actually taken into consideration when we talk about the Western world. Now, there were certain observations that were made by the Task Force on Social Work Research, which was sponsored by the National Institute of Mental Health. Okay. And there were some observations that were made by this. So, one observation that more researchers are required to do research that informs a social work practice, and there are deficits in the structural arrangement of research. Okay. And it was further noted that the Council on Social Work Education has reaffirmed its position that schools of social work to be accredited must provide instructions that teaches students how to evaluate the effectiveness of their practice. Now, this was all done in United States. Okay. Now, this is basically more in in concept with the in context with the United States that we are talking about, because the United States is one country which has contributed to the maximum when it comes to the field of social work. Okay. Now, again, one important aspect that has come, as a result of this change is conducting intervention research in direct practice with individuals, okay, groups and families. Now, intervention research is basically focused on the development of knowledge about interventions, okay, as being comprised of intervention knowledge development, intervention knowledge utilization, and intervention design and development. Okay, so these are the basically three subfield of the intervention research. Now, uh, Now, this model of intervention design and development, it combines and integrates the essential features of the two pioneering efforts in the field of research and development, okay, in the human service. This integrated model is comprised of 6 phases. So, first phase includes problem analysis and project planning. The second phase includes information gathering and synthesis. Third phase includes designing, early development, and pilot testing. Fourth is evaluation and advanced development. Fifth and finally is the dissemination part. Okay, and the research focuses on the various aspects of these phases, and it provides a very clear view of the creativity that is necessary to develop the relevant intervention that achieve practice goals. So we have this particular model that which is more seen in the Western world. Okay. Now, after this, Uh, okay. Uh, I don't think this can be. This is just a description of the model. I think we can just go over it. After this, we come to the research review in social work. And this is from the national perspective. Okay, that is from the perspective of the of India. Now, um, you see that until 50s in India, student research was almost the only research activity in the schools of social work in India. Apart from this, there were not many, research work which was carried out by different, um, you know, institutes or research bodies. Usually, the nature of social work research that took place as a result of the impetus given to social research in general by the Planning Commission. So, the Planning Commission made it imperative that this research needs to be carried out because this was important in understanding the requirement of the development, planning of the programs that they need to come up with, the intervention that they need to plan. So all of these required certain kind of a social work research. And the Planning Commission, for that purpose, it set up a research programs committee whose main function was to farm out the studies in different fields and aspects to different research agencies. Okay. Now, this research programs committee was followed by a central social welfare board, which sponsored few field studies in the area of social welfare, which was undertaken by the schools of social work. So, the Central Social Welfare Board, this was established, and this was actually responsible for sponsoring research in various fields through the various social work schools. Now, as a sequel to this development, a number of research studies were undertaken by the schools of social work and which covered a large number of areas, wide range of areas, starting from community health to community mental health, child welfare, women welfare, youth welfare, elderly care. Of course, all of these things we have generally seen even in the international scenario. And apart from this, two very important aspect related to India was HIV and AIDS and slums and slum population. Now, these two aspects are very important when it comes to India because HIV and AIDS was a very important problem till now, and it still is, where a large number of population has been impacted because of HIV/AIDS. And another one is the problem of urban agglomeration, which is seen through the development of the slums and the population that has increased in living in the slum areas over a period of time in India. So these are some of the very specific problems in India that needed to be studied. And a lot of schools in social work, they started studying these problems. Okay, through a through carrying out uh, research work. Now, earlier we find that most of the researchers, just like in the international scenario, employed survey research designs. Okay, that is why they were mostly concerned with describing the different social problems using basic statistical methods. However, even in India, the situation changed later, and we see that now most of the schools of social work, they have started using different methodology, different research designs to carry out the social work research. Now, most part we know that the research curriculum in social work education, this has been modeled mostly on the social science research, and that is why research in social work is very much similar to the social science research. And as such, social work researchers, they largely view the culmination of research as the drawing of conclusion from the research findings through the process of deductive reasoning. And these contribute definitely, obviously these conclusions contribute neither to the knowledge base of social work nor to the social work practice. Okay, and you find that the research findings, they have hardly any relevance to the social work practice. And as a consequence, social work researchers and social work practitioners, we fail to see the link between the social work research and the social work practice. And that is why um, research till date has been largely lagging in a country like India. Now, what is the emerging trend of research? Now, social work research, it needs to emerge from the present, uh, you know, situation that it is, and definitely the research and the practice, they should be perceived as allies, of course, to the social work, and definitely also to know that social work research, it has immense uh, uh, use in the field of social work practice, and that is why this research in social work needs to be stimulated, and this needs to be actually the present dependence on the social science research model, the model, this needs to be done away with. We need to do away with this dependence, and appropriate social work research model needs to be evolved for that matter. Now, the areas of social work research may be broadly categorized into these different areas. Six areas. One is studies to establish, identify, and measure the need for service. Now, we've already seen that there are different areas of social work research, which we have seen at the international level. Same areas can definitely be taken even in as well as far as India is concerned. So, you need to establish, identify, and measure the need for service. Second is measure the effectiveness of the services which is offered, okay, and also to test and evaluate the results of social work intervention, to list the efficacy of the specific techniques, the studies in methodology of social work, and finally to develop evidence based practice models for social work education. Now, these are the six different categories of or areas of social work research in India, just like as we have seen in the international scenario. Now, this we have already seen the role of research in social work. It will be similar in the Indian context as we have seen in the international context. And now, program evaluation research. What do you mean by program evaluation research? Program evaluation research is simply how you research which is conducted to evaluate the various programs that are ongoing, in terms of providing services to the clients in various areas, or planning interventions in different areas. So the program evaluation research is very important when it comes to the Indian context, just like in the international context. And there is, of course, a very important role of NGOs in research. Okay. Now, since the past few years, this growth of non-governmental organizations, it has been quite much manifold. It has been manifold, and the funding to for this research has also increased. So now you will find that you have more and more non-governmental organizations either working as a society, who are interested in actually carrying out or increasing their role in the research activities. Okay, so they basically so these NGOs, they actually carry out research activities to a great extent, and as part of their projects also, NGOs, they carry out research activities, and this research that is carried out by these NGOs, they help as a you can say that a baseline for or as a guidance, for planning intervention in areas related to that particular uh, aspect. Now, after this, we have this the program evaluation approach of program evaluation. Now, NGO's performance and their outcome, it also needs to be examined from the perspective of their effectiveness. So, whether the work that is being carried out by NGO, whether it is effective, whether they are able to actually, examine the perspective, whether they are able to actually bring about various uh, uh, you know um, the services that they are providing, whether those services are effective. So all of these things require certain studies which are related to program evaluation. Okay, and so definitely most of the NGOs, they do not undertake evaluation research to assess their performance or outcome. Now, this is a reality which is definitely seen in the NGO, uh, you know, um, um, in the field of NGOs, where they do not want to continue the such studies. And the funding agencies, on the other hand, they largely depend on the annual progress reports. Okay, so whether the funds that they have put to use, of the fund that they have provided to the NGOs to plan intervention, to to actually implement the intervention, whether it is effective or not, whether it is giving the kind of outcome that they were expecting. So all of this thing is important. So such program evaluation studies by organizations, by NGOs, is very important. Now we come to the recent trends in the social work research. So far as India is concerned, what are the recent trends in social work research? Now, the first is that evaluative research is being undertaken in a variety of organizations, and it's basically now known as a follow-up study. So basically, this will help you to evaluate the effectiveness of the service provided or the programs that has been put into implemented on the field. So whether it is giving proper outcome or not, and here different client levels are covered for evaluation. Okay, then social work intervention, of course, you have apart from this, you find that a true experimental research design now has also been now put into greater use in terms of, in case of social work research. And this is again used for testing causal relationship between the various variables. Then apart from this, we find that there is still a need to develop a research paradigm that emphasizes a combination of qualitative and quantitative measurements. So, apart from these qualitative and quantitative measurements, there are some other quasi experimental designs also. Okay, other sampling methods also that they have to be put into practice. So, this research paradigm, which emphasizes a combination of these measurements, that has to be developed. Okay, so we find that research has a multifaceted role to play, where as far as social work is concerned, as the profession and practice of social work is concerned. Steps like redesigning the research curriculum for social work, integration of research, okay, theory and practice, stimulation research in social work, and emphasis on need based research methods. They have to be taken to demonstrate the role of research in the social work education. So, definitely, there is a lot of changes that needs to be suggested, that needs to be taken as far as the social work research is concerned in India. And nowadays you find that social work research has is now offered in lot of universities across India. Okay, specifically, uh, you will find that in various schools of social work, they have started postgraduate, graduate, MPhil or doctoral research programs, and this social work research is now an inbuilt uh, discipline, or you can say it is inbuilt in the discipline of social work research. And you will find that at any level you study social work research has come to be accepted as a very important method of social work. Okay. So this was about the national and the international perspectives of social work. After that, we come to the next unit, which is the research process, the formulation of the research problem. Now, we have already seen from the previous unit, from the first unit rather, when we were studying, that formulation of the research problem is the first step in the research process. So, whenever we plan on starting a research, doing a research, we know that formulation of research problem is the first step in the research process. And this is considered to be the most crucial phase of the whole project. Now, this starts with the selection of a suitable problem from the field chosen by the researcher. So, whatever field you choose for studies, whether it is related to child welfare, whether it is related to women welfare, whether it is related to juvenile delinquency or whatever. So, whatever area we choose for our study, we have to consider the selection of a suitable problem from the field chosen by the researcher. So, in the area of social work, there are several problems that may exist, and these may have reference to pure applied or action research. Now, the choice and formulation of a suitable problem is one of the most difficult tasks you can say for a researcher. Okay, like there are many sources which a researcher may consult in order to formulate a suitable research problem. Okay, now it is basically this chapter is basically devoted to describe these activities which are involved in the process of problem formulation. So there are different activities which will start with defining the problem, how you define the problem, statement of the problem, how you state the problem, okay, operationalization of the variables, evaluation of the problem, and formulation of the research hypothesis, etc. Okay, now now we come to the description of the research process. Now, we know that this process is the blueprint of research project. Okay. And in a research project, researchers engage in various scientific activities in order to produce the knowledge of a particular aspect. Okay. And although each research project is unique, all projects, regardless of the phenomena being studied, they involve some common activities. And these common activities has been grouped into 6 stages. So the first stage here is the selection and formulation of a problem. The second is the formulation of hypothesis, that is the statement which we intend to prove or disapprove. Third is the formulation of research design. Fourth is the collection of data. Fifth is analysis and interpretation of data. And sixth is finally generalization or theory building. Okay. Now, although these stages are independent of each other, but the researcher usually enters the research process at stage one, okay, which is basically selection and formulation of a problem. Now, we also find that this process, this whole research process, is also cyclic in nature. That means that it is not complete in generalizations. It goes back to the identification of a problem and so on and so forth. So they are all interrelated and interconnected. Okay, it's all cyclical in nature. And this process, it leads to two situations. The first situations may be that the data did not support or partially support the hypothesis. That could be one problem. And the second could be a situation that if that is, even if the research is successful and the findings of stage 6 confirm the hypothesis of the stage 2, it is advisable to repeat the study, preferably with a different sample, with a view to reconfirm the findings. Okay, so we find that the research process is not complete even at stage 6. It is a cyclical process, and we again go back to the stage 1 and we start a process all again. Another important characteristic feature of the of the research process is basically what is known as the self correction. Okay, so in situations where the data it does not support or only partially support the hypothesis, and the researcher has sufficient reasons to believe that the hypothesis is adequate, then he or she may decide that the failure to confirm the hypothesis is due to error in selecting a sampling design, or in the measurement of the key concept, or in analysis of data. So basically, this is also a self corrective process. So if you find any kind of anomaly in one process, you can go back to the previous step, and then you can again do it. So this is basically a self correcting process. Now here we come to the process of formulation of the research problem. This is the first stage in the research process we've already seen. Essentially, two issues are involved in the formulation of research problem. Namely, first is understanding the problem thoroughly. So we need to understand the problem thoroughly. And second is to rephrase the same into meaningful terms from an analytical point of view. Okay. So first we understand the issue that is involved, and second we rephrase the same to meaningful terms from an analytical point of view. Now, the best way to understand the problem is to discuss it with colleagues or with those who are having some expertise in the subject. Okay, so for example, in an academic institution, you may come across with some researcher who can help you, who can help in terms of a teacher or a supervisor or a guide who is usually an experienced person. And often the teacher puts forth the problem in general terms and in general terms, and it is up to the researcher to narrow it down and phrase the problem in operational terms. Okay, so the researcher will help you to understand the problem in general terms. And once you have understood the problem, he or she will help you to narrow it down to a more operational term. So you have to be, again, as I've already said, you have to be very, very specific in your, in statement of your uh, uh, research problem. Now, the researcher must examine all available literature, okay? And you know that once you are acquainted with the selected problem, you have to review the literature which is concerning the concepts and theories, and also brings about a more empirical understanding of the literature, okay? The basic outcome of this review would be to would will be the knowledge as to what research questions have been explored. Okay, now this will enable the researcher to specify his or her own research problem in a more meaningful context. Okay, now, after this, we come to the definition of the problem. So, once you have understood the problem, once you are able to actually put into more generalized term, then you provide a definition to the problem. You have to actually define the problem in the problem concern. This definition amounts to specifying it in detail and narrowing down to workable size. So, you have to actually find out, you have to actually define in terms of making it more workable. Okay. The third is the statement of the problem. A good statement of the problem, it clarifies exactly what is to be determined and solved and what is the research question all about. So this is something that we will uh, are going to do. That is a statement of the problem, providing a good statement of the problem. Next is the operationalization of variables. Now, the researcher should make sure that it is neither stated in terms so general as to make it vague. So we have to state the variables in a manner where they can be actually, easily understood. Okay, they are delimited in their scope. Okay, they are limited in their scope, and uh, also one needs to state what one needs to study. For example, you want to study the effectiveness of the self-help group on the empowerment of rural women. And this is basically how the variables will be written down. We will write it in a manner so that they are easily understood and they become more limited in their scope so that the the scientific research method can be easily applied to. Okay. Now, after this, we will evaluate the problem. We need to evaluate a proposed problem in the light of our own competence and professional experience. And basically, we are going to, uh, you know, evaluate this in terms of our competence and professional experience, in terms of the possible difficulties in the availability of the data. Okay, like it could be financial difficulties, it could be some field constraints, it could be limitations of some time. And after evaluating a broad research problem, you know, we come up with a broad research problem, and then we narrow it down to a highly specific research problem. Okay, now is the problem researchable? Now there are certain problems that cannot be effectively researched you know, through the process of research. And a researchable problem is always concerned with the relationship existing between two or more variables, which can be defined and can be measured. Okay, then we are going to also see if the problem is new. If the problem is new or it has been already into existent, has there been other research work done by the researchers, all of these things which have to we have to take into consideration. Is the problem new or is the problem already there? Has it already been studied by other research work? Is the problem significant? Is it impacting a great deal of people in the society? Okay, that we need to actually fill in the gaps in the existing knowledge. So we have to see, is the problem significant? Is the problem feasible for the particular researcher? So we have to see in our own research competencies, our interest and enthusiasm, our this our financial considerations and feasibility. All these things we need to take into consideration. Of course, administrative considerations. Then we have to already seen the time, apart from administrative considerations, where we will be taking the personal limitations, the financial constraints, time constraints. We are also going to be the see the time, whether the project is time bound or whether we have a more time at our disposal. All these things we have to take into considerations. After this research problem, we talk about the hypothesis. Now, we know that hypothesis has been defined as a tentative proposition. Okay, it is suggested as a solution to a problem or as an explanation of some phenomena. Okay, the formulation of this hypothesis is typically considered with the help of the implication of the related literature and the deductive logic of the problem under investigation. So we are going to see whether the hypothesis in question, or the hypothesis that we are, which we are formulating, it is typically determined with the help of implications of the related literature and the deductive logic of the problem um, uh, problem under investigation. After we come to the importance of hypothesis, why is a hypothesis important? For that, we are going to discuss some of the basic, characteristics of a good hypothesis. The first is basically hypothesis that provides direction. Okay, it provides some kind of direction to the research, and it prevents the review of irrelevant literature and collection of useless or excessive data. So it will give us a good direction. So the direction that we need to take in case of you know um, uh, coming up with preventing any kind of an irrelevant literature or excessive data on our at our disposal. Then hypothesis, it should be testable, that it should be stated in such a way that so as to indicate an expected difference or an expected relationship between the different variables. So a hypothesis should be testable. We should be able to test the hypothesis. And third is that hypothesis, it should be very brief and it should be clear. Another important thing is there should not be too many hypotheses in our study. Usually 3 to hypotheses are considered to be quite sufficient, and in fact even less than that. In fact, 1 or 2 hypotheses is considered to be more, you can say that considered to be quite sufficient for testing the studies. Now, there are some important characteristics of a good hypothesis, like it needs to be consistent with the known facts and theories. Okay, hypothesis, it should be able to explain the data in simpler terms. The hypothesis should be stated in the simplest possible terms, depending upon the complexity of the concepts involved in the research problem. And finally, a hypothesis should be stated in a way that it can be tested for it being probably true or false. So it should be able to actually, uh, s- uh, state it in terms of true and false. Now, formulating and testing of hypothesis. Now we know that the hypotheses, these are formulated to explain the observed facts or conditions or behaviors and to serve as a guide in the research process. So, apart as a result, there are certain conditions that are conducive to the formulation of hypothesis, and these conditions are deducing a hypothesis inductively. That is, you may deduce a hypothesis inductively after making observations of behavior, noticing trends or probability relationships. Okay. The second is limiting the problem. Here we need to say that the basic understanding of the literature pertaining to the problem under investigation, it has also become essential in view of the fact that the already existing corpus of knowledge on that particular problem is too detailed to be incorporated in the process of hypothesis formulation. So, the researcher must have the ability to comprehend the available evidence. Third is the deriving a hypothesis deductively. These hypotheses are known as deductive hypotheses, and basically here we these are formulated by studying a particular theory in the area of one's interest, and then you actually deduce hypothesis from this theory through logic. Okay, so this is how the hypothesis is deductively derived. Now, hypothesis is definitely derived from analogies or conversations. Okay, so it can give clues that may prove to be useful in the formulation of hypothesis and for finding solutions to problems. Okay, for example, a new social institution resembles an old one with respect to a particular set of factors. So here the researcher knows that the factors correlate in a particular fashion. Okay, and he or she may hypothesize in terms of trends in the relationship to be expected in the new social situations. So here how we bring out the hypothesis from analogies and our conversations, etc. Now after this we come to the various forms of hypothesis. Now hypothesis could be declarative, it could be in null form, or it could be in a question form. Now what are these various forms? A declarative hypothesis, it makes a positive statement, also known as a positive hypothesis. Okay, so it brings about the positive relationship between two or more variables. Okay, the second is the null hypothesis. This is a non-directional hypothesis. That is, it proposes differences or difference proposes difference or relationship. Okay, now there is that is it states that there is no significant difference between the performance of two groups of social workers. So it's known as a null hypothesis where it is non-directional hypothesis. Okay, and the third is what is known as the hypothesis in question form. So in the hypothesis in the question form, instead of stating that outcome is expected, the question is asked as to what the outcome will be. Okay, so this is a hypothesis in question form. So these are the three types of hypothesis. Okay, now it is easier to state that the hypothesis in the question form, uh, it appears to be quite useful to write down all the questions that one wants to answer in a particular research study. Okay, and on the other hand, researcher face difficulties in predicting the outcome of the study and stating the hypothesis in declarative form. Okay, but it is worth noting that the question form is less powerful than the declarating or the null form. So we know that a negative hypothesis it tends to be more powerful than a positive hypothesis or a null hypothesis. Now, the testing of hypothesis again is a very important activity that is done in the research process. And as a researcher, there are certain important steps that we need to take once we want to test a hypothesis. Now, these steps are, first of all, state the research hypothesis, formulate the null hypothesis. Okay, after we state the research hypothesis, we are going to formulate the null hypothesis. We are going to choose a statistical tool. Okay. We are going to specify a significance level after this. We are going to compute the statistical test. We are going to reject or accept the hypothesis, the null hypothesis, and finally draw the inference. So we are going to see if we accept or reject the hypothesis in question. So this is how the testing of hypothesis is done. Now this we will be discussing more elaboratively in the later part of the block. So you need not worry much about this. Next is the state the research hypothesis, then formulate the null hypothesis, choose okay, so we have done this in various different steps. After we choose a statistical test, we are going to specify the significance level. Okay, see the level of significance that we are getting, compute the statistical test, and reject or accept the null hypothesis again and draw inference about the hypothesis in question. Now, when we are finally, testing the hypothesis, that generally we find some errors which are known as type 1 error and type 2 error. There can be some kind of um, uh, you can say that some errors that may come up when we are dealing with social sciences. Okay, but because we have already seen that social sciences, we do not find propositions that indicate certainty. Okay, so thus we have this condition where we admit the possibility of B may be false even if A is true. So if we reject A whenever B is false, we also run the risk of making error, that is rejecting a true research hypothesis, which is known as the type 1 error. Okay, so in type 1 error, we make the error of rejecting a true research hypothesis. Okay, and type 2 error is an error where we accept a false research hypothesis. Okay, And there is again these two types of errors which come when we are testing the hypothesis: type 1 error and type 2 error. Okay. Now, here we find hypotheses in various types of research. So, you will find hypothesis in experimental research, in descriptive research. The type of hypothesis is different in different types of researches. So, when we are doing experimental research, the hypothesis is basically related to the cause and effect relationship, to the occurrence of other conditions. And in case of descriptive research, we find that different types of hypothesis has been used in descriptive research. And uh, here the uh, some now again it's not a hard and fast rule, but generally we find that some researchers, they are concerned with the developmental studies, especially in identification of trends and predicting like what will happen in the future. So they may have interest in the study of opening of non-formal education centers and all of these things. So basically, the type of hypothesis will differ from the type of research design that we use. And so, in descriptive research designs, the type of hypothesis will be different as compared to the hypothesis which we are using in the experimental research design. Okay. Now, after this, we come to the next unit, which is basically the research process, preparing the research proposal. Uh, Now, here we will study about the importance of writing a research proposal, why it is important, how do we prepare a research proposal, how we prepare a sample design, okay, how we prepare a plan of collection and analysis of data, and prepare a scheme of the research report, and finally, the prepare the budget and the time estimate for the research. So all these are included in preparation of the research proposal. Now, uh, we have done this procedure, useful procedural guidelines. We've already seen the various, steps that are involved in the research work. After that, when we formulate a research proposal, there are certain steps that we have to follow. Okay, so when we start with the formulating of the research proposal, the first step that we would follow is formulation of the research problem, like we have already seen before. It is the first step. The second step in this process would be the review of literature. So we take up the literature which is related to the research problem in question, and we describe it in the review of literature part in our own words. Then we have the identification of the objectives of the study. So we identify the objectives of the study. Then we formulate the hypothesis. So if there is any hypothesis, generally descriptive researches may or may not have hypothesis. It depends upon the research design and the formulation of hypothesis. If it is there, we formulate the hypothesis. We do the operationalization of the concept. So we see the try to find out the relationship, interrelationship between the various variables. We then go to the next stage, which is the preparation of the research design. Here we will see the research design, the type of design that we intend to follow, the various methods of data collection that we will be use, the selection of sample for data collection, selection of methods and tools of data collection, like whether we will be using a questionnaire, whether we will be using uh, a research schedule, interview schedule, so and so forth. Then in the next stage we will go on to the collection of data. After we have collected the data from the respondents, The next stage would be the processing and analysis of the data, then analysis and interpretation of the data, finally presentation of the research report. Next stage would be the budget estimate and the time estimate. So this is basically your research proposal. So whenever we intend to start a research, we have to first give our research proposal and follow these different steps. And through the research proposal, we make a a kind of planning of our research work, and this is the research proposal which is required not only to get sanctions for the budget, but also to get sanction from the research committee whether you can go on with this particular research, whether the problem that you have taken for the research is a practical one, whether the time line that you are following or the budget estimate that you have given, whether that this is something that can be allowed. So all of these things will be given in the research proposal, and it is this research proposal which will be actually presented before the research committee, who is going to actually accept or reject the research proposal. Now we have already seen these different stages in the previous units, so we need not actually go in delve in detail. Now based on the the kind of uh, the steps that we have to take, this entire research activity, it has been a required time has been given. So this is actually an appropriate time which will be given to the researcher to carry out the research. So the different steps of the research, they have been allotted various timelines. So certain, some will take 2 weeks, some will take up to a month, some will take 1 week, all these things. So this is basically the time required, and this is for approximation of the 12 months. So if our studies were to be conducted within a period of 1 month, the whole month will be divided into this different time periods, and each activity of the research, each research activity or each step of the research activity will require this much time. Now this is just an approximate uh, you know approximation of the time taken by various research activities, and this is also just a budgetary estimate to let you know how you make up the budget for the budget estimate for the project proposal. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of our class for today. We saw this the various introduction to research, where we have dwelled into the various the meaning of social research, the meaning of social work research, the nature of social work research. We have already also seen the different phases through which the research work has gone through, not only in the international context but also in the Indian context. And finally, we have understood the various steps in the research work, steps in the formulation of project proposal. So we will meet again tomorrow, same time, and then we are going to study the next block. Please go through whatever we have studied today in the class, and if there is any problem related to understanding of any concept, then we can do this. We can take up again in the next class, and then just give a some spend some time in um, uh, you know revising that particular context. So thank you so much for joining me for the class today. I will be seeing you all again tomorrow, same time. Till then, have a great time. Have a nice day.